Dead by Daylight can be really difficult to learn regardless of which side you choose to play on. One side you get a team of 4 people that you could hopefully rely on and get to play with friends, and the other side you get thrown into the trials and have to figure it out all alone. Playing by yourself against 4 people can be incredibly intimidating, especially if you don't know where to start. That's why in this video I will be showing you the basics of how to play Killer, something to hopefully help you not be afraid to queue up. Let's get into it. The most important part is picking which killer you would like to play. I would recommend picking someone who heavily relies on basic attacks. This is because I think it's important not to focus too hard on how to use their ability, but more so on movement and how survivors tend to play. I personally believe Trapper is a really good starter character, so that's who I would recommend. The reason I believe that Trapper is a really good starter character is because when setting traps you get a good idea of the map layouts. Also, survivors barely ever look down, so you tend to get a lot of free downs even if the traps aren't hidden well. The next most important thing would be perks. Trapper has a really tough early game while he sets his traps, so typically you want perks to slow down that early game, allowing you to set up. However, if this is your first time playing Killer, this won't usually be an issue. As you level up, I would recommend getting the perks Thrilling Tremors from Ghostface, Bamboozle from Clown, and Corrupt Intervention from Plague. These 3 perks are insanely good for new killers since they give gen slowdown, information, and some sort of loot pressure. They can be used and viable on almost any killer. Also, all 3 of those killers have perks that are super useful outside of the 3 perks that I listed. So getting them to Prestige 1 will help you with future more intense builds. To get these perks, you just have to Prestige those killers one time and their perks become available at tier 1 on every killer. But for now, we have to work with what we got, so I would recommend using Brutal Strength to start, which is a Trapper perk. This perk increases action breaking speed up to 20% and will help you snowball pressure when needed. When you first load into a game, make sure to pay attention to where all 7 gens on the map are. While patrolling these gens, set some traps in the area and make sure to listen closely to see if one is being worked on. You'll notice there is a distinct difference between a gen being actively worked on and a gen that has been worked on. If you hear a sound like gears turning on the generator, that means a survivor is currently on it. In most cases early on, this is a free hit for you. Don't be afraid to drop chase with the survivor to kick a gen if it has a lot of progress. To kick a gen, walk up to it and follow the prompt it gives you. As the killer, the only way you can see the progress of a gen is the pumps on top of the generator. If the first one isn't moving, there isn't a lot of progress on it. If all 4 are moving, that means that there is a lot of progress. This is something you kind of have to guesstimate, but will be easier the more you play Killer. If the gen does not have a lot of progress, try to continue the chase and don't worry about kicking it. Now, in chasing a survivor, it's really important to pay attention to their movement. If they are a new survivor, they will tend not to look behind them or won't stay around loops very long. This will give you an advantage as a killer since you move faster and get Bloodlust. Bloodlust is the longer you chase a survivor, the faster you get. This will tier up naturally, the longer you are in chase, giving you up to 0.6 movement speed increase. If you notice the survivor is playing around loops, looking behind them, or mind gaming you, there is no shame in dropping chase early and finding someone in a weaker position. Usually, between the 4 survivors, there is something called a weak link. This just means a player who is not as strong as the other 3, or at least as strong as the juicer survivor, the one who is paying attention and looping well. This survivor tends to be the easiest to get out of the game, allowing you to snowball pressure off of them. The juicer survivor will usually put themselves in a not so strong spot to try and save the weak link. If you do choose to take on a strong loop versus a good survivor for practice, the advice I will give you in this video is hug the loop as tight as possible. This just means that you're pressing your character's body against the wall and move towards the survivor, lessening the distance between you and them. Also, if you see them camp a pallet, swing. Sometimes the reaction time will be slow and you'll get a free hit and be able to get rid of the pallet. This is a double win. Last but not least, the survivor will use your red glow to know what direction you are going. The red glow is an indication most killers have showing what direction they are facing. This means if you face another direction, the survivor won't know what way you are going. You could use this to mind game the survivor. Mind games are a little more advanced, but if you'd like to try them, they pay off majority of the time. Keep in mind there's nothing wrong with dropping chases you feel have gone on for too long and looking for that weak link or just a survivor who's in a weak side of the map where there's no real pallets or windows. As gens start to get completed and the game starts coming to a close, there's nothing wrong with slugging, tunneling, or going back to hook to get more pressure. Once you become a better killer with really strong perks and a good understanding of the game, it won't be as necessary, but early on these strategies are fine. Regardless of what survivor mains tell you, these are legitimate ways for you to apply pressure and push the game back in your favor. Now, these strategies are risky and will not always pay off, especially versus good players who know how to play against them. So use them only really when you're behind and need something to bring you back into the game. At the end of the day, Dead by Daylight is a game and it's meant to be fun. The best piece of advice I could give you as a new player is to not only focus on winning winning, but the mistakes you make and how the other side plays. Once you learn playstyles and how loops are ran, you can work on countering it. Killer is super stressful at first, but it becomes super rewarding, especially when you learn really hard to play killers or playstyles and implement them for the first time. The best way to learn is to play, adapt, and see what playstyle fits you the best. Hey, if you're still watching, make sure to like and subscribe, as I do plan on making more educational killer and survivor content. Also, leave a comment on who your favorite killer is or who you look forward to playing.